Okay. So, hello, everybody. Gary Hines here with Career Strategy Forum, another edition. Thanks for tuning in. We have a very special guest today, and we'd like to get her on just a minute. That's Regina Robinson. We'll be coming to you shortly. And I wanted to let you know you're listening to G Town Radio at gtownradio.com and at WGGTLP 92.9 FM in the Northwest. Because I have to remind people that there's only excuse me, connectivity if you're in like a 1 to 2 mile radius of where our antenna is, which is right in the heart of Germantown. Remember, you can find my shows under Career Strategy Forum on Spotify for Creators and now on Mixcloud and also at GaryHinesConsulting.com. All right, so welcome, Regina.
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm happy to be here.
Great, great. Happy to have you. And again, I will tell the audience that Regina and I are neighbors. We've seen each other at different events over I guess, the year or so, and reconnected just recently. And so I'm so glad we did. Regina's been a wealth of information, and I'm so excited to talk to her today. So we're going to get started on all of that. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and kind of like how you got involved in the work that you do now?
Oh, wow. Okay, it's a long story. Um, I have to say, I've always been interested in helping people. Many years ago, when I was considering my careers, many years ago in high school, I wanted to go into social work. And I actually went to school. I went to college my first year for social work, but I realized that that wasn't really the most for me, I wouldn't say it's not effective, but for me, I was more interested in changing people's perceptions of themselves, of the world, and I discovered mass communication. So I ended up getting a couple of degrees in mass communications, and that, oddly enough, led me to adult education. And it was through communications that I became introduced to adult ed. And it was because I started working at a nonprofit that was an association for programs that educated unionized workers. And I went into the organization for distance learning. And that's back in the 90s when it was just called distance learning. A professor of mine recruited me to work in that area. And that's how I got started in adult education. I eventually found myself in the classroom, and it's almost like in the classroom I have stayed. I never thought of myself as a teacher, but I am proud to say that I'm an adult educator, and I love being an adult educator.
That's fantastic. So great. So great. That's a great story. So I know we talked a little bit when we met in person about your passion for teaching and training. So can you speak a little bit more to that? What really drives you in the work you do?
Well, I have to tell you, it's my own story. When I first went to college, I went to a fabulous HBCU, Fisk University, down in Nashville, Tennessee. Go Bulldogs.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And one of my classes was in mass communication law. And I found that very fascinating. As I said, while I was officially a sociology student, that mass communication law intrigued me. So I went to Fisk for a year, and then I wanted to find myself. So I dropped out. And I eventually, thank goodness, I eventually got my head together and decided that I would go back to school. But by that time, I was in my 30s. So I decided that I was going to go back to school. Luckily, I was actually working in radio at the time. I was working for a radio syndication company, and I was living in New York, and I was an adult returning student. So I understood what it takes to have a full-time job, have other responsibilities, and also get your education. And I think because of that, I'm very empathetic toward adult workers who are also getting their education. So that's where I think I got the passion because I knew what it did for me. When I was working for a radio syndication company, I started as a receptionist. I moved up to the president's assistant. Then I went into the promotional department, which was considered the hardest job in the company because we had quiz shows. And each quiz show, we had four quiz shows, and each quiz show needed to get free prizes to
Hmm.
give out to the radio listeners. And each week I had to make sure we had at least 4,000 pieces of, of tchotchkes, books, CDs,
Right.
tapes. We were even still doing audio tapes, cassettes, and I had to go to different or companies and get them to donate that those prizes in
Wow.
exchange for a mention. And
Hmm.
then and that was considered the worst job in the company. But it was a great training for me because then I moved into advertising sales. So that was my commercial radio background. But as I said, I really wanted to do something that was more impactful. And while I was at New York University getting my master's, one of my professors was working for this nonprofit, as I mentioned, that helps to train unionized workers. So she recruited me, and that's when I got into the nonprofit adult education world.
Hmm. Wow, so similar. And just to tag onto that a little bit, it's funny because I started out in teaching, like in the classroom, and then jumped into nonprofit,
Mhm.
and then from the nonprofit back to the classroom. So it's been between those two worlds is kind of where I've been before I decided to branch out on my own. So very similar stuff, very similar.
Yes, yes.
But I'd like to hear that. I know you had spoken to me earlier about, you just really felt that passion in you about why you wanted to do this, and it was, very relatable because of your own experience.
Yes.
It was great. Did you ever do any work with Philadelphia Works?
I have done it in kind of a roundabout way. One of my clients, which is Learn, Empower, Grow Consulting Group, they do a lot of adult education. And one of the areas they focus on is training child development associates to get their certification. And some of the work that they did and that they do was supported by Philadelphia Works. But I don't have at this time, maybe soon,
Mhm.
but at this time, I don't have any a direct relationship with that organization. But I think you do. Is that correct?
I do. I know
Hmm.
somebody who just, well, he's been there now. I'm not sure if it's been a year yet. His name is Marcus.
Hmm.
Um, I'm kind of blanking on his last name, but he left B Literacy, Beyond Literacy,
Hmm.
an organization I think I mentioned that one of our neighbors on Walnut Lane is the COO. And he worked for her, and we became, I'm friends with him too, but he's now at Philadelphia Works, and I can connect you with him. Marcus is his first name, but he's a great guy. And I think with your kind of information and if you're looking to do something like that, I can certainly do that connection.
Well, I would appreciate that. And I am always looking for opportunities to increase my area of focus. My area of focus is in the basic skills.
Hmm.
And the communication basic skills, reading, writing, listening, speaking. I don't do any math training, I'll be
Okay.
very honest. I really, and the thing I'm very passionate about, and the thing that drives me is the transformation that happens in adults
Hmm.
once they have a positive learning experience. Just yesterday, I was in New York City, in Brooklyn, Boogie Down, no, that's Boogie Down Bronx. I was in Brooklyn. I'm thinking of Bed-Stuy, Do or Die.
Oh, right, right. Okay. Uh-huh.
um, for some unionized workers in the CSEA, which is the Civil Service Employees Association, and they work for the state of New York. And most of the students I had yesterday they work for the tax department or they work for the DMV. So they're in there really grinding, but they have a lot of emails to write and reports and memos to write. And a lot of them are very insecure about their writing. And what I love is the first hour of my class, everyone is very uptight. They don't want to expose themselves in terms of, well, they don't know where a comma goes or they don't know what a predicate is or anything like that. But I'll tell you, I taught a class, it's called Successful Business Writing. And we just go over some of the basic rules and guidelines and tools to make people more comfortable with the writing task. And I have to tell you, by the end of that class, we were laughing, people were excited. They were saying, I can't wait to go. Oh, and they were even showing me letters and emails that they have gotten from higher ups that they
Mhm.
were now able to critique. They were saying, look at this. I could write this better.
Right. That period is not supposed to be there. That comma.
Right, that's not right. Look at the tone of this letter. And they were so excited
Mhm.
that in one day they had gotten all of these skills and tips, and they're ready to go back to work and be more productive, be more satisfied. And also, because writing is a transferable skill, they know that they'll be able to use those skills in any kind of writing that they do. And
Mhm.
that's what makes me excited.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, great. And yeah, I totally get it with the look in the eye. Like once they start getting it and it kind of registers with them, they're like totally different people.
Yes.
A lot of resistance, I'm sure, happens, and it's like, "Ah, I don't want to do this." And I taught GED prep
Okay.
and adult basic education, which was even something that was required at community college before they took pre-GED. So, it would be folks that were like sort of mandated to have to come to these programs.
Hmm.
So, the resistance was up big time. But I'll get into that in a minute. But one of the things I saw on your bio here was that in the capabilities area, that I'm just going to read part of it. It says, RMRS has delivered effective workplace education and training solutions that increased worker proficiency and morale. So, in that statement, so how do you think the proficiency of the workers just increased once they had gotten through some of the basic and education that you do?
Oh, it's tremendous. And I'll go back to one of my first experiences with that. Way back when I was working for the organization that supported unionized workers and their education journey was called the Association of Joint Labor Management Educational Programs. And joint labor management educational programs are partnerships with an employer such as the state of New York or Verizon or a nursing home, um, the steel workers, and their unions. So
Mhm.
these are frontline workers who rarely get education and training. And what was happening, as you may remember, in the early 90s, there were a lot of layoffs, a lot of or industries were changing, computers were coming in, jobs were coming in, and not only did people have to be retrained for the job they were in because of the technology changing, because people were getting laid off, they had to be trained for new jobs. So one example is steel workers. So these are people working in the mills
Mm.
and they're doing very physical work. And now they're being told, oh, you're going to have to try to go into IT.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
here's the next job that you should be looking at.
Right.
And in order to get the workers into the classrooms to get up their basic skills proficiencies, they had to take these courses offered by their joint labor management educational program. And nobody wanted to go into those classes
Mhm.
because a lot of them had very negative educational experiences in the past.
Right.
They felt, well, why do I have to go to school? And what happened was to get those workers into the classroom, That joint program put together a creative writing workshop where they said, just come in, just tell your story. And let me tell you, they have some stories. Steel workers have some great,
Sure.
workers have amazing stories.
Uh-huh.
But they were starting, and it was just come in, write your story down, and they had a positive educational experience. They wanted to learn the grammar and punctuation because they realized that that would allow other people to understand their story better. And as a result, they started enrolling in the other classes.
Mm, mm,
And so we actually published a couple of anthologies of unionized workers' writings.
mm-hmm.
People went back to school, they got their degrees, they
Wow.
got higher scores on their promotional tests.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went back into their jobs, they could perform their jobs better.
Yeah.
One example is I know a lot of people, a lot of workers say, oh, I can do my job really great. I can actually do my supervisor's job, but why can't I have that position? And it's almost like I use the analogy, you know how if you dress for the job you want, you dress for success,
Yep.
you have to learn how to write for the job you want. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened. People started getting that. And I have so many examples of people in low level, entry level jobs who are now in professions, have gotten their degrees, have become writers, have become published authors, playwrights, etc. It
Right.
just opens them up.
Right, right. That's absolutely amazing. And it's interesting too because one of the nonprofits I worked for was called Delaware. I think we talked about this Delaware Valley Industrial Resource Center, known
Hmm.
as DVIRC. They were
Hmm.
in the Northeast. They still are for now. But anyway, they were a manufacturing sort of consultant organization that would go out to different manufacturers and do training on the job training, things like lean manufacturing and quality control and all kind of things. But I used to have to go out into these manufacturing sites, and some of these guys are pretty rough. They're like, "Who are you? You got a tie on?" And we're here doing our fingernails are dirty, but we're doing, and so trying to get those guys into a classroom, with somebody at the front of the room teaching something was just interesting, believe me. But once they, understood how it related to the job, they got it. So it
They
comes.
get it. And they also, the other thing that happens is that it changes the attitude of education in the family.
Mm,
Um, Very often in my classes, if I have multi-day classes, there's homework. So you find people will come in and say, guess what? My kid said to me, hey mom, let's do our homework together. Or, now I can help my child with their homework. So
right.
it changes the whole attitude of around education in the family, which I think is also very important.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, Another area I wanted to ask you about is that, like, what are the skills that you think workers need in this time, in this changing environment that we're living in, this crazy environment in this world that we're living in? But what do you think are some of the skills that they need now?
Oh, well, in addition to your job specific skills, employers are looking for soft skills like like soft skills like um, conflict resolution, critical thinking, time management, being self motivated. Communication skills are really, really big.
Yeah,
And that's why I've focused on a lot of the writing skills. I also teach pronunciation, and I also teach ESL. So those are things that employers are looking for. They're also looking for people who can work well with other people. And a lot of times, your ability to work with other people depends on your communication skills.
hmm
That happens a lot. I had a couple of examples yesterday where someone said, well, when I write an email to someone and I say, I need this report, right now. And
Mm.
why do they have an attitude? Why are they giving me grief about what I've requested? And everyone in the classroom was like, "You don't see it? You don't see it."
Just the tone, yeah.
It's the tone. And someone said, maybe you should start out with please or thank you.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times we're not aware of these things, but that will change the response this person will get from the people she's requesting information from. And
Right,
she
right.
got it. And it was fun. And sometimes people just need to have a little mirror put up to them
Mhm.
and then they get it. But employers are really looking for those skills where people can grasp information quickly, where they can communicate effectively, verbally and in written form. And as I said, time management. I also teach a workshop on emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
That's a big one because we have a varied workplaces
Yep.
and people have to learn how to get along with folks with other ideas, other political ideas, other cultural ideas and backgrounds. And you have to learn how to work well with people because those workplaces, I don't think they're going to change. We're getting multi-generational
Mhm.
workplaces. So you really have to know those soft skills in order to be successful.
And I'm glad you bring up the point about multi-generational because I was going to say I think one of the soft skills today that's needed is environments where, and you've probably dealt with this, where you have maybe an older staff with a younger management. And so the communication levels, like texting versus emails versus phone calls versus written memos, do you run into any of that? And how do you talk to people about that?
Oh yeah, we talk. Yeah, that happens a lot. Definitely in terms of technology.
Mm,
The younger generation, of course, they grew up on this technology and they're very proficient in it. And so the older generation likes to have more of the person to person interaction,
right.
where the younger generation really just wants to rely on the technology.
Hmm.
Um, so yes, you have that. One other thing is that what I'm hearing, especially from my unionized colleagues, is that it's very difficult to get younger people involved in the unions. So there's a big push on explaining the benefit of becoming leaders in the union. So
Hmm.
I know that there's a big push there, but the intergenerational, yeah, that can be a tough one.
Yeah, yeah. That's something I've definitely been looking at because I just see like there's a disconnect a lot of times with, this supervisor is 25 years old and I've been in this company for 25, 30 years. And now I have to listen to them. They don't have, so it's just a lot of dynamics that happen, I think, around that. So you're right about the emotional intelligence part.
Oh
Because,
yeah, yeah.
and I don't know if they prepare people. Do you find that some of those kind of skills are given during onboarding and orientation for new employees, regardless of industry? I don't know if it is.
I I don't if it is, I mean, it would put me out of business in a way.
Right, right, right.
So,
Mm,
and especially the frontline workers. Now, that may be happening in management and upper levels of management, but I don't really see that happening for frontline workers. And that's why my clients, especially my clients in the joint labor management educational world, that's why they are putting together these courses because it's those frontline workers that need that training. They're not
mhm.
getting it.
Right.
As you said during the onboarding, they're getting, they're being told what their benefits are, what the job is, things like that. But in
Hmm.
terms of how to work with people, manage people, that's not really happening I will say, among the organizations that I'm working with. I
Yeah,
think it's a lot for a company to do. And I think that's why it's good that there are consultants like you and I that can provide this kind of service.
right. Come in and just help them with that particular area
Yeah.
and move on to the next area that they may need assistance in. So,
Hmm.
one of the things I was thinking about too, and what are your thoughts on one of the things I noticed about in manufacturing, particularly in I would call it advanced manufacturing that are doing like sort of the tech work,
Mhm.
is that a lot of these companies have really, restructured the work environment. So I've been in companies where there are like pool tables and basketball courts and sleep rooms and things like that. Have you come across companies like that? And like, what do you think about that whole environment?
That's the new generation.
The new generation,
That's
yeah.
that open workspace.
Hmm.
I became introduced to that when in the 90s, especially when I was working in advertising sales. That was the beginning of the open workspace. Now I understand that people are starting to go back more to the cubicles and
Hmm.
things like that because there's no privacy.
Right, right.
People like having their own space. I think it's great to have things for recreational things. Like I'm a dog owner, I'm a dog mom. So
Hmm.
I know that a lot of companies offer opportunities to bring their pets in. I think it's great to have support like daycare, on-site daycare.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
also think that it's great to have opportunities for people to engage, play games, and because it does build the camaraderie. I
Right.
think it's very important. It can go a little overboard, but it depends on the industry. Like I've looked at pictures of Google's offices.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's like you're in a
Like
frat
playground.
house.
Yeah, fun house.
You
Right,
know,
right, right.
but that will attract those young workers.
Hmm.
So it's generational and it's obviously working for them. But I think for a lot of companies, that is not something they're going to budget in a big way.
Right, right. And the same thing I feel about remote working. And don't know what your experiences are around that. But what I want to say before we get into that subject, I want to just pause for a minute because I'm going to edit this down, and we're coming up on a half an. I can't believe we're coming up on a half an
I
hour.
know.
So, but I'm going to pause and just kind of relax. So you don't have to say anything for a couple of minutes because when I edit this, I'll bridge on to the next part. So. But anyway, I want to go to the next area into kind of remote work, learning or working. So hold on just a minute. I'm going to reset my timer. Let's see here. Okay. On to another 30 minutes there. All right. Need to get water or anything? You're good.
I'll take a little sip of my tea.
Okay. And I